Well, welcome everybody. Everybody. Oh, terrible start. Welcome everybody to Bants and the Belfry, episode 3. Tonight I am going to be having a conversation with my friend Duncan Nairn, who is probably best known to, I think, the people who might be likely to be listening to this podcast for his work in Keller as the vocalist and lyricist. Um, but he's actually a very busy man who's done a lot of very interesting things, and usually seems to have 3 to 5 projects on the go at any given moment. I've known him, I think, since 2005, when my ex-wife actually introduced me to Duncan. I think we were both going to a party together, or a gig perhaps. He had a mohawk, he had red eyeliner. Uh, he asked me where I'd been hiding, and I suppose I had been hiding for a while. I don't think I'd been going out to many gigs or events for a few years. And I think we've just been sort of orbiting each other ever since. I don't think a year has passed in the intervening time that I haven't run into Duncan a few times and had a few conversations. He's an interesting man to talk to. He's got many interesting things to say. Um, but let's let's not spend forever setting the scene, as it were, and let's crack on and get into and onto and around and amongst uh, the small slash large matter of Duncan Nairn. Now, Duncan, would you like to unmute your microphone? There you are. Hello, sir.
Hi.
Hi. What are you playing with there?
This is a little Korg KR Mini drum machine. I just use it for kind of rhythmic accompaniment
Mm-hmm.
because it's sort of a bit simpler than other drum machines which might take ages. This
Yeah.
one is basically plug and play. You just set it off, and it's really fun. It's got lots of presets and tempo and level, and its battery lasts for ages. So it's just really handy to have around as a bass player.
As a bass player, right? So I thought you might be about to lay down some rhymes.
No, 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 no.
That's not the plan. That's not the plan.
No.
Well, usually,
You're not exactly fond of my rhyming.
am I? Am I not? Like, well, look, everyone's a critic, aren't they? Um, well, yes, Duncan. Normally, when I've talked to somebody, or when I'm going to talk to somebody, it's very clear to me, what I'll talk about because they're insanely passionate about a particular thing. And in your case, well, that's not the case at all because you seem to be quite passionate and quite accomplished with regard to a number of different things, which we'll get into. Which I have here a list of questions arranged under appropriate subheadings. I mean, I did think we would start with music, um, because I think most of the people who would be listening to this podcast would be most familiar with you probably through your work with Keller. Um, I don't know if you know, but I run like a listening party on Sundays, and Keller songs are actually quite routinely requested um, in that listening party by people outside of New Zealand. I mean, it's a band that's really um, had quite a wide-ranging impact. So I did think I'd start by asking you a few questions about them, even if they're questions I might know the answer to. The understanding that many other people may not. So I'm sort of interested how that band came together, and I suppose what its current status is, and anything you'd kind of like to say about the intervening period and the things they've sort of accomplished.
Yeah, sure. Of course, I can tell you how it started. It started, I suppose, in late 2005 when Brad and I were talking about getting together like a once-off sort of Rammstein tribute act. And we had a bunch of different friends interested and involved, and Brad started working on kind of backing tracks for it, although I think he wanted to drum. And I'd previously been living in Germany, and in a really, really weird situation, I ended up being sort of locked in a cellar for a bit. And
I think no, hang on, wait, pause. I think we are going to require some amount of detail on the being locked in a cellar incident slash situation. I don't think we can skip that. I don't think you can bring that up and then just not
Right.
not explain it.
Um, yeah, so I'd like to remain a little bit tactful and a bit delicate because I am still friends with the son of this family. But I was a quite a grungy little goth kid with big hair and ripped fishnets on my arms and black nail polish. And in this middle class German situation, they didn't really like that, and they didn't trust me very much with the house and its lovely German possessions. Um, and so at night time, my bedroom happened to be on the ground floor, which was also the cellar because it was sort of underneath the house proper.
Mhm.
And at night time, they would lock me. The door to the rest of the house would be locked.
Hmm.
So maybe it kind of conjures up the wrong images of an actual cellar. It was comfortable down there, but it definitely was like being locked out of the rest of the house.
Was there a bathroom?
Yeah. There was a bathroom.
Okay, all right.
They disconnected the telephone though, which I thought was
So you couldn't
um,
call for
uh,
help.
I couldn't call my mother, and she's still upset that I missed her 50th birthday
Oh,
telephone call. She brought that up recently. Um, Yeah, so it was uncomfortable, and there wasn't much music to listen to. I got into Alice Cooper because there seemed to be a lot of Alice Cooper down there.
hmm.
And yeah, I just generally kind of went about things, and I was going to school over there, and eventually I found another host family who took me in, and thankfully that really radically changed the rest of my experience of Germany in 2003, 2004. Otherwise, I would have probably been sent packing back to Wellington.
Golly. And so this had happened. You and Brad were making some sort of a Rammstein tribute
Oh yeah, this
act.
is why later. Once I moved back to Wellington, I think I brought up the story and I said, hey, I um I had this weird experience once, and while I was in it, I thought maybe Cellar Children would be a cool name for a band, but because it's like alliteration and in German Keller Kinder, I thought that'd be quite a good name, and it just stuck with me, that name.
Hmm.
And I associated it with the Ramstein tribute act for obvious kind of linguistic reasons. And I'd my German was all right at this point. It was pretty good. I hadn't had a lot of formal training at university at that point, but it was good enough to kind of muddle my way through Herzeleiden, Sehnsucht, and Mutter
Hmm.
lyrics. Yeah, and then eventually it turned into then Brad, while he was kind of jamming on this new material, this Ramstein tribute thing with me, he ended up suggesting, "Oh, just by the way, I've sort of been jamming on my own stuff, and it's just a bit gloomy. We were obviously listening to a lot of sort of typo negative and London After Midnight and that sort of gloomy thing, and he is quite a gifted pianist and arranger,
Hmm.
as well as composer. And so he had put this kind of gloomy little song together in A minor called "She Likes the Candle Burning," and he'd written all the lyrics for it. It was basically done, and and then we went up to his parents' place and locked ourselves in his like sleep out with a bottle of absinthe and some candles and some incense, and we just tried to really gloom the place up. And we ended up writing the second song, the Black Raven's Dark Flight of Doom, and that was January '06.
I
Uh,
didn't. I mean, I'm familiar with both those songs, but I had no idea that they were actually the first and the second song uh,
hmm.
that you guys wrote.
Yeah, I just finished a Gothic literature paper at Victoria University, and so I was full of all these tropes of what Gothic fiction would be, and so I just wanted to sort of satirize them a little bit with this ridiculous story of the Jungfrau and the Schloss, and yeah, I made it. Yeah, it was all very silly, and it was the whole point, of course, from the beginning was to be absurdly tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
And not to take it seriously at all. And I think that joke continued for the first couple of years until as a lyricist, I ran out of things to satirize, things to kind of make jokes about. I ran out of cliches effectively. And then eventually I started writing genuine, heartfelt songs like The Cold and whatnot, songs that I actually gave a shit about. But I mean, this chat with you isn't talking about the history of Calican. I suppose that was early '06. We were writing the early stuff, and I suppose maybe I don't know 2017, 2016. We were still doing. It was really when Anton finally moved to Canberra that the band sort of ended. And there wasn't we didn't say this out loud. I didn't even think I realized it at the time, but that is when it ended. And he came back for a visit, and we managed to do a reunion show
Mm.
December 2018. And the fact that it felt like a reunion show made it very clear that the game was up.
And do you envisage that, I suppose, future reunion shows or collaborations under that moniker or that banner might still be possible, or do
Yeah, I
you?
don't think anybody's ruling that out. I
Mm,
mean, Brad still lives here with us in Wellington, and I know Anton is moving back. I think he has to go through those 2 weeks in managed isolation, so I think he'll get back in February out of the isolation, stay in the hotel.
mm. I mean, I should point out too that there was certainly a period there when you guys were like a big local band
Hmm.
that you were playing. I mean, the average goth band in this city plays to 20 or 30 perhaps of the usual suspects, um,
Yeah,
myself included, amongst them. But you guys were playing to hundreds, I remember, certainly for a period of time. And you did that, you did some kind of international festivals and so on, didn't you? I mean, it was like
yeah,
you made some
we went to
noise.
Australia twice.
Yeah, you made some noise,
We did,
and you definitely
yeah,
attracted some attention. And you're
we went
doing.
to we did Under the Blue Moon Festival in 2008 and Fiend Festival tour in 2014.
Hmm.
And uh, yeah, I both enormous kind of momentous experiences, and you just learn so much so quickly.
Hmm. And you put out 3 albums, and I mean,
No, two full length albums.
and an EP.
I guess so. Yeah,
Yeah.
there've been other releases, but I really just think of Kindergarten and Dying City. And there was so much time between those. There were 6 years between those releases, and now weirdly there's 6 years after that second release. So I wish I could tell you that there were a third album coming out right now, because that would be at least keeping with our 666 thing.
Well,
But sadly, I can't tell you that.
never
It'll
say
be more
never.
than time.
And of course, I mean, naturally enough, you were singing and writing lyrics in that band, but I haven't perhaps mentioned also that you're a quite an accomplished bass player and have played bass in a bunch of bands as well. One of which, one I was going to mention. Well, I'll mention a few, but one was the Drab Five, of course, the typo tribute band.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
that
we so
you,
we Brad and I did end up getting together with some other friends, Fraser, Vivian, and Alistair, and we did 4 pretty competent tributes to Typo Negative.
mm,
I think we worked really hard. The rehearsal schedules for those shows were nuts, really hard work, and I think the end result was pretty good
mm,
for all four shows at Bodega, Puppies, and San Fran. Just medium-sized, sort of smaller venues in Wellington.
mm. I mean, I saw at least two of them, and I mean, I'd have to agree that they were quite competent. I mean, I really did think you pulled it off. Um,
Mm, thanks.
and I suppose there's no sort of plans like that's done and dusted now. There's
I
no
think
thought.
that's done.
Mm,
Yeah, I think it's done. The just the um I know Vivian. I helped Vivian move house a couple of months ago, and he said that he'd be keen to do it again. But it's such an enormous undertaking,
Mm.
and everybody is so busy right now with their own other projects. It would be hard to really get that together.
And of course, right now your let's say gothy music project is After the Flesh,
Yeah,
in which
and I'm
you
loving After the Flash. It
yeah.
feels really new and exciting, and I get we rehearse twice a week, which seems a lot sometimes, and it's been really fun. And it came out of another project with the same vocalist, my friend from Slovenia, Marusha, and we had a previous band which was doing all covers called Crimes of Passion,
Mhm.
and our intention was for that to turn into original material, and it didn't, and it kind of had to change its name and change the guitarist, kind of one of the songwriters, and we ended up with called After the Flesh, which I came up with, I guess, because I mean, I think I probably was listening to that song by My Life with the Thilko Cult. Um, I think I might have been on the bus home from practice and just listening to that song and thought, this is a great band name.
Yeah, and
Um,
it is a good band
and
name.
I think we'd been kicking around the name Flesh Sessions, but it's so hard to say. And
Fleshins.
Flesh Sessions.
I know.
It's too many of like that syllable. Like it didn't really work, and I don't know. And it sounded a bit like Jeff Sessions, the
Mm.
American. And I didn't plan for it to be like a political band, and it seemed confused. Um, so yeah, I just suggested that, and Alec and Marusha went along with it, and it's been really great so far. We put out two demos, two tracks in winter, two tracks just recently in spring, so obviously Southern Hemisphere, um, and they've all been very well received. And we're also recording our first single at the moment, which is called Perpetual Midnight, and we've got a team on board to make the music video, and
Mhm.
I'm really excited about that because I loved what they did with Def, their music videos. They were like a post-punk band around Wellington and had great videos. So I'm really excited to see what they can do with After the Flash.
And what are your sort of ambitions, I suppose, for the band? Where would you like to see them go? And also, what's your kind of creative role and what's sort of a creative process in the band? I mean, given that that's something sort of quite contemporary that you're working on.
Mm. We I think we all write. We jam a lot. I think we don't have a live drummer. We have a synth player. I play bass and I muck around on a synth, and Alec plays guitar and he mucks around on a synth. And I've got another drum machine that we use to kind of write beats with, and then Alec ends up replacing them on an electric kit with actual drumming. And we just kind of get some mics rolling and jam our riffs, and we pick the best ones. And lately, that's been really working, and I'm really looking forward to after the next. We're going to do some shows in summer, but after that, I'm really looking forward to writing new material towards an EP and putting that out next year.
Mhm.
And yeah, maybe a couple more music videos. I've as you might get to later, I've been involved with quite a few music videos over the years, and so I expect we'll make a few for After the Flash. I do get really excited about the marriage of all these disciplines when it
Mm.
comes to music video production.
Yeah, and that's I actually do have it sort of lined up to talk to you about some of that stuff too. Maybe just before we do that, I might get you to talk a little bit about what I think is your other sort of major contemporary music project that you're involved with, which is the post rock band Ebu.
Mm. Yeah, um, I have been in Ebu. Well, I co-formed Ebu with a very old friend of mine, Lester, in 2013, and he'd been living in we'd been in a band previously since Wellington High School, since 2001, called Alabaster Theatre, and that was really fun. And he used to sing in that band,
Hmm.
and then he moved to London, and he was over there for 4 years, and he found out about this music genre called post rock, which is mostly instrumental, and I had no idea about it. I started listening to bands like Russian Circles to try to get into it and try to understand what the whole thing was about. And yeah, he said, look, I'm moving back to New Zealand. I want to start a new band, and I want you to play bass. And I can't say no to that man and his musical suggestions. So that's been great, and it's been quite a busy band.
Mm.
We've
You certainly got some traction with them, haven't you?
Yeah, we've done quite a few tours. It's not, I mean, it's certainly not gothic, but it gives me, I have a lot of freedom sonically to play however I want. So the way I play, having been influenced by bass players like Simon Gallup and I suppose Peter Steele, I guess, that does come into Ibu, and I can't unhear it. I mean, I suppose I will always hear that because it's my bass playing, but so I wrote it all very consciously. But I do think that it's probably quite popular with people in the goth scene, and there usually are a few people, of that bent, at shows.
Mm.
Um,
It's quite sort of cinematic, isn't it?
yeah, and particularly with a big light show and projections, like we can turn it into a great big theatrical thing, and it's quite musically challenging writing without vocals, because as soon as you take the vocals away, you're removing that sort of almost de facto pop structure. You have to make things interesting in completely other ways.
And what sorts of ways have you, I suppose, discovered to do that through your experience with that band?
Well, we use I suppose it's more like, you don't think of like verse chorus bridge chorus, like
Yeah.
that structure doesn't exist in this way of arranging, way of composing this type of post rock. We kind of write in movements and then transition between movements, and we very rarely repeat ourselves or even kind of reflect back. It's all very linear, and I thought that would be quite a tedious way to write, but it's actually really quite fun. I mean, I know it's fun to listen to, because I think a lot of post rock bands tend to write like that, and there is usually, I mean, maybe it's cliche to even talk about a crescendo in post rock, because so many of those bands just always end up building up to this enormous crashing guitar crescendo.
Right.
That is often what happens, and we do it as well, and it can get really loud. I suppose it's all about softness and loudness and like delicacy and kind of brutal heavy riffs, and just making them all kind of sit comfortably almost next to each other. So it's that writing dynamic I do find really interesting, and I'm not going to go away from that anytime soon, I don't think. Unfortunately, I think we're losing one of our guitarists. He's going back to his home country shortly, and that's going to be really sad, because it'll mean that we can't play a lot of the material that we've written.
Oh, hang on. Wait a minute. Is that Burn?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, right. Oh, that's a shame. Good guy.
Yeah,
I like chatting with old Burn.
so we're a little bit sad about that, and so we're gonna do some more. We're gonna do some tours over summer and just say goodbye, and however he wants. And yeah, so that's been really cool. And just before we leave the whole Duncan band world, I also play bass in my newest project is with my old friend Ryan,
Mhm.
sometimes called my platonic life partner. We flattered together for a very long time, and we always talked about getting a band together, and we never did. And so this year we finally did, and it's called Body Siege, and it's sort of it's sludge. I guess it's sludge metal. It has a very strong industrial punk flavor. It's got a lot of Ministry elements in it. So
Right.
it's kind of fast and angry and loud, like a lot of Ministry is. But it's a bit heavier and kind of sludgier and just big kind of wall of noise and everything too loud. It's the only band since that type of negative tribute that I've had to wear earplugs in.
Oh wow.
It's that loud. Yeah.
And
So
what are your plans with that? You know, where do you sort of
well,
see that going?
I kind of like with Ebu at the moment and Body Siege, because other people are kind of taking the driver's the steering wheel with those bands. I can sort of coast along and be directed much in the same way that I direct things with After the Flesh. You know, I can't be all go all the time with all projects. So I know we're playing our first show in March, so we've got like a 30-minute set to finish writing before then, and
Will
see
that
how
be
it
at
goes.
Valhalla?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
awesome.
guess.
Good stuff. Oh well, is there actually anything that you guys have recorded that you've put up online that I can link to, or is we're not at that stage yet?
No, not with Body
No.
Siege.
Okay, cool. I suppose I did have one question while you were talking about Ebu. So I was just sort of wondering, like, how close is the compositional approach that you take to the music there, similar to maybe classical composition, except for I presume you're not actually writing down all the notes, right? And also I was wondering how much kind of improvisational. Um,
Funny you should say that.
Funny I should say that. You are writing down the notes. He's holding up for the audio version. He's holding up a sheet of notation.
Yeah. So
Wow. Okay.
I get these emailed to me, and
Right.
I've had to relearn how to read the bass clef.
Right.
Yeah. So
So that is.
I try not to make so many comparisons and allusions towards or comparisons with the classical writing approach.
Mhm.
I believe it's probably very similar, but as I'm not a classical composer, I was brought up listening to practically only classical music at home as a child and a young teenager, and so that's always there. But I find that the constant comparison or considering that the bass line is not always a very helpful reference point, because not everybody shares that. And so to consider that that's a very Eurocentric kind of baseline, and I don't normally think it's always helpful to compare everything back to European Western classical music. Although, yes, for the people who are familiar with that musical tradition, then they probably will, once they make the certain kind of sonic adjustments to electric instruments, it probably is quite similar. Not necessarily Ebu, but I think generally classical musical lovers may find something familiar and akin in instrumental post-rock.
So, but for you as a bass player in that band, does that mean? And I'm just curious. Does that mean that most of what you play is composed, or is there a fair amount of improvisation that you're doing around a theme or melodic line?
Mm, no, I mean, there isn't much improvisation.
Yeah.
It's particularly in the new material.
Right.
The new, like Lester composes everything.
Right.
I mean, he gives the Declan or drummer, he gives him a bit of leeway. He says, kind of do what you think makes sense, and he does also say that in reference to us, that like he knows that I suppose I'm a better bass player than he is a composer of bass for this genre,
Right.
but it is all about counterpoint and what the bass is doing something very, very specific in this new Ebu material, and it has to slot in there. Excuse me. It has to slot in there with where what the guitars are doing and what the synth lines are doing, and the other. We have some more exotic instruments like clarinet and flute and recorder and whatnot. And they all are doing their own thing, and they all sit in their own little places, and it is designed that way. And when you hear it all big and live in our rehearsal studio, then yeah, you can completely understand why it's been composed this way and what every instrument is doing. And I get it. And he is a much better composer than I am. I couldn't possibly sit down and write, all these different instruments. I couldn't possibly do that. It's
No, me neither.
way above my pay grade.
Yeah. I was actually going to move on to the sort of film stuff, but I just realized I didn't ask you. This is your fault, Duncan, actually, because you're doing too many things that I want to talk to you about. But this sort of relates to music. Well, it directly relates to music. But you've also been quite involved in organizing gigs, and running those sorts of roles as well. And so, you particularly, obviously, shadow play over the years, which is, I suppose, it's the main regular goth thing that we have in Wellington that you and Brad and some others are involved with organizing. But in terms of your involvement with organizing events and gigs, I guess I'm curious, maybe best and worst experiences, or any advice you'd like to offer anybody who might be thinking about doing that sort of thing. Any things that you've learned from your experiences over the years.
Well, just try to break even, I suppose.
Right. That's solid advice, and not easy to do necessarily.
No, I know. Just try to find people who are really passionate about what they do, because often, in the tiny goth scene of New Zealand, there isn't a lot of money to go around, and so people just often have to be doing these things as labors of love. And yeah, I suppose, yes, I've organized gigs, but of course, a lot of that has been rather self-serving because they've been my gigs, which I've been performing, but not necessarily always with shadow play. The point of shadow play was just as a regular goth industrial club night with one live act, and that's how it was for the first few years. And then that was a weeknight thing for like a $2 gold coin entry.
Oh, that's right. Those were the days.
This is a long time ago. This is 07, 08 sort of time. And then we brought it back in 2015 as sort of a seasonal event. So 4 times a year, with live bands and live DJs on a Saturday night, same venue, and better lighting. Everything was sort of a bit more kind of upgraded at that point. And yeah, I suppose that leads me neatly into the next version, which is we're upgrading. Well, I do hope that we are upgrading again to a larger format annual event, a music festival, perhaps you could say, called Gathering Shadows, which I came up with sitting, I think, right here during the lockdown of the COVID-19 lockdown in March, April. And I was just missing all of my friends and missing going out and listening to the music we all love, and just hanging out socially. I suppose that was a huge drain on me, as I'm a bit of an extrovert and a bit of a social moth.
A goth moth.
And yeah, so I just started talking to Brad, obviously, and Jess, and the team of Valhalla Touring, and we just said, well, can we put this on? And we're going to at least give it a good college try. The Americans won't get that reference. But yeah, we're going to attempt it, and it's going to be over. Well, there are going to be other kind of associated auxiliary events, like a picnic in a cemetery or something. But generally, it's going to be Friday night at Valhalla, Saturday night at Valhalla, Sunday night at San Fran, and I've booked some amazing live bands from around New Zealand and live acts, and I've got some really cool stalls happening. Like 4 of my favorite sort of like crafty witches are going to be selling their wares, and I'm really looking forward to that. And just decorating the place, and um, yeah, I think it's going to be a really good time. And I know that it takes a little while to build this excitement, so I've just been sort of holding it all in and trying to and also trying to get other people excited. Yeah, I am. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm looking
And
forward to it.
you're
And I'm in it. I'm in it.
yeah.
Uh, so I guess I have to go. Leave my house. Goodness me, it's no fun for an introvert.
No.
Um, well, uh, actually that doesn't lead on to the next thing at all. But so we're just going to like dramatically shift to the next section. Um, you work for Weta, Duncan.
Yeah.
Which Weta are a visual special effects company. I mean, I suppose they do a bunch of different things, but I mean, well, they're super famous and they're owned by Peter Jackson, and everyone should probably know who Weta are. And you're a rotoscope artist, but you, as well as you were. Oh, you're not anymore. See, this is why I should do more research.
No.
Oh, what are you doing now?
I was a rotoscope artist for 5 years.
Hmm.
My first 5 years at Weta Digital, and I was eventually promoted to, I suppose, arguably the next rung up the chain, which is digital paint.
Yes, that's right. Sorry. Um,
Yeah.
but like, well, I suppose I'm just trying to lead generally into your interest in film and your background in film, which is considerable. And I know you've been part of Bent Cornea, and you've made a lot of music videos and short films, and you've done the 48-hour film festival, I think, multiple times. Is that true?
5 or 6.
Yeah.
5 or 6 times. Yeah.
So I guess I'm interested in, your background in film, how it relates to what you do for a job, what you've sort of done as part of this sort of film collective, and what's the status of that group, what sort of plans you might have coming up, what sort of memorable experiences you've sort of had, what interests you in film in general. Just
Right.
yeah, run with it.
Oh boy. Well, I'm going to try to keep this brief. I've always loved video editing.
Hmm.
Ever since I figured out how to join up 2 VCRs together when it was all VHS cassettes in the 90s. I figured out how to join them up together, and I found my dad's video camera, and I just started making short films with my friends in the backyard and cutting them together. And then many years later at Wellington High School, well, I went to Wellington High School because they had a really good film and TV scene and facilities. And then I ended up moving to Germany. And once I could speak enough German, I ended up doing an internship as a junior video editor at a German media production house, and I was loving that. And I thought the career for me, but my mother strong-armed me into coming back to New Zealand and doing a real degree and at a real university, and so I did, and I ended up getting a double major honors in linguistics and German. And then I went straight back into a career going back towards the film area. I wanted to upskill in certain areas like color grading, and so I ended up doing this diploma and and I made this short film at the end of the diploma, and that got me my first contract at Weta Digital.
Yes, because you was I was told you won some sort of a competition that led to you getting that first job.
Yeah,
Is that true?
I won an award.
Right.
I won a small award for the visual effects, and that was like the people judging that competition were visual effects professionals from Parko Post and Weta Digital, and that's how I got my first contract, and that was 9 years ago.
Wow.
And yeah, so we started at the on the first Hobbit movie and worked through all of them and so many others. I don't know how many feature films I've worked on. It's something like between 30 and 40.
Have any favorites or any sort of favorite incidents or things that you've worked on? I remember there was some kind of running thing about Gandalf's hat, but I wasn't super privy
Yeah.
to the details of that
That
one.
was, yeah, as a rotoscope artist, there were certain horrible things that I remember having to work on. Um, Gwyneth Paltrow's hair in Iron Man 3 was horrific. Um, just having to animate just hundreds of little blonde strands of hair.
Mm,
That was horrible. But yeah, I because of the nature of my work, I'm not actually allowed to talk about a lot of these specific details
right,
because even though those Hobbit movies are so long in the past, like the workflow in the pipeline is still technically confidential.
right.
And I'm allowed to say what I do, but I'm not really allowed to give very concise, particularly current examples of what I
Mm.
do.
Could you just generally say what the most enjoyable film has been that you've worked on, do you think, without telling us, I suppose, why?
Um, yeah, I suppose Alita was pretty cool.
Ah, I saw
Alita
that
Battle
one.
Angel.
Yeah, I didn't know that you worked on that. I saw that film.
Yeah, I worked on
I
it for
really
about a
enjoyed
year
it.
and a half.
Yeah,
That
wow.
was um, that was the last movie that I did roto on, and the first one that I did paint on.
Right.
Because we worked on it for so long. Um, yeah, really, I don't know, just really fun. Like I've only seen it the once, but it was good. My niece really likes it, which
Hmm.
is cute, and I think that further endears the film to me.
Hmm. And so you've been involved with Bent Cornea. I don't. Are they still operational? Sort
No,
of. Not at
no.
all.
Ben Cornea Productions kind of started as a way to make 48-hour films ostensibly, and also to get a big team together that I needed for the end of diploma film that I made in 2012, which was called A Man with Needs, and it
Uh,
was very silly. Um, but I needed a pretty big crew to work on that film for free. I mean, I was a student. I had about $600, which paid for coffee and petrol,
hmm.
and that's what that film cost to make. Maybe $700, and it was a 40-minute film, and it didn't need to be anywhere near that length. And I just wanted to see if I could do it, and it was a huge learning experience. And Ben Corney Productions sort of formed to create that, and that was end of 2012. And for the next 4 years, no, no, really for the next 3 proper years, we made about a dozen short films and music videos for various bands around Wellington and for various film competitions in Wellington. Um, yeah, and then the last big project was the what ended up being the final music video for Keller, which was Bridge Burner, which was again one of the biggest kind of things that I've worked on outside of Weta, because obviously Weta is this enormous machine, and I'm a tiny cog. And then sometimes it was nice to be a relatively big cog in a tiny machine. And that's what Ben Cornea Production was. And we managed to get a lot of things done for of quite good quality for quite cheap. And I'm still really, really stoked um, with most of the things we made. I didn't really like the musical very much. That musical was really hard to edit, and I don't want to work on another musical.
That was a
Um,
48-hour film too, wasn't
yeah,
it?
yeah. So we
Yeah.
only had
So
48 hours
that's
to make it, and I didn't get much sleep, and it was just hard work.
mm.
Um, but yeah,
Even writing like that much
Delicacy
music in
always been
48
hard.
hours is a nightmare, right? Even just writing that
Yeah,
much music in 48 hours sounds like a nightmare to me. But then to additionally, have to have everyone perform it and film it and edit it together, I
yeah.
I just I don't know how you guys did that.
well, thankfully we had Brad, who's a brilliant composer, and he was just able to write music that fits everything perfectly. What made it much harder was to then, of course, Brad had written all this amazing music, but then to have all the singing on top, and then all of the editing of these pre-recorded songs that they were trying to sing along to on set. And there was just so many things that went wrong, and the director wasn't there to tell me how things should work. So I really was just alone with all the raw footage and all the raw audio, trying to make sense of it. Yeah, that was shit.
It sounds like a literal nightmare, like a bad dream that a person would have.
I had absolutely no direction from any directorial, people. It was it was hard work, and so less said about the better. Thankfully the last video that we made didn't go exactly without a hitch. We had we were trying to get one of the last shots of the video for Bridge Burner by Keller, and I was in the back of the big German convertible with Anton and Brad, and I was holding a drone. And we were just driving down the hill, and the drone guy said to let go of the drone when you feel it pulling on you, because it's ascending, it's whatever the term is, and so I let go, and it went straight up, and then it banked off to the right, and it was never seen again. And I had all this amazing footage on it.
I remember that happening. It was like my heart broke a little bit, and I wasn't directly involved. But
we were up in the middle of nowhere, so surrounded by bush, surrounded by forest, and those drones don't weigh very much, and so it presumably just eventually ran out of battery power and came to rest on the canopy of a tree or in some unsuspecting Karori backyard. I really hope that somebody finds it one day and unearths it and finds some really fucking weird footage of goths running around in tunnels with a shotgun. Yeah, it'd be an interesting thing to find.
Yeah, it'd be a notable artifact. And then to have to try and figure out what it means and to track down the individuals involved. Did you guys have to pay for that drone or anything? Did insurance cover it, or? I mean, a practical consideration, but.
No, I mean, I'd paid for the guys to fly down from Auckland, and I think they had insurance. I don't know. Maybe it just shows how truly callous I really am that I never actually asked, "Are you guys all right?" I mean, this was their business, so they must have had insurance. This shit must happen all the time.
Well, let's assume so, just so that you can sleep at night.
But yeah, they were. I mean, what do they cost? Like a grand?
Something like that. Sounds about right.
Yeah. It was an interesting experience, and I'm enormously proud of that video. I got waterboarded, and the stunt went horribly wrong, and I was literally drowned for about 4 seconds, and it was probably the most scared I've ever been, because of course I was tied up with a towel over my face, effectively upside down, having peach iced tea poured into my mouth and nose, and literally drowning in peach iced tea is horrible. And I remember when I got home that night, I went to the fridge. The first thing I did was to pour myself a glass of peach iced tea, because I didn't want to
never be able to go near it again.
This particular drink.
I think that's called the Garcia effect. That you have a horrible experience with something that has a taste, and then can never encounter that food or drink again.
That must happen all the time. I mean, people, every other person you mention tequila to says, "Oh, I can't drink tequila because of that night in 2006." I don't know.
Yeah.
People say that all the time with particular drinks. But yeah, I just thought that it would be such a silly way to, well, such a dramatic way to go off peach iced tea forever. I mean, the stunt worked. It looked really good.
Yeah, I remember seeing I wouldn't say it was a documentary, but a short clip or something. Because some journalist who was, getting quite upset about that. I think the Americans were using waterboarding. Might have been during one or another of the Gulf Wars, I think. And so he was like, "Well, actually, do it to me, because I want to see what it's like." And
I mean,
it was
I know that the English journalist Christopher Hitchens.
it was Christopher Hitchens. It was that, and you
Yeah,
remember it's like that. It was
and
like seconds,
yes, and I did watch
second.
that. I did watch that clip several times, and I did show it to some people in the stunt crew.
Right.
We did have some really good people, and I did feel supported when I came back out, and suddenly I knew everything was going to be okay. Um, yeah, um, yeah, and yeah. So that was Brisbane, and that was the last Bent Cornea production um, that we did, and we didn't. I think after that, everybody just sort of went his or and her separate ways, and there were a couple of people who said, "Hey guys, it's been fun, but I'm out." But generally, we all just kind of very naturally just kind of drifted apart, did our own things, and
Mm.
I yeah. I started getting busier at Weta and focusing, I guess, more on my bands. Um, yeah,
Are you involved with any, I suppose, film-related stuff outside work at the moment?
no. Occasionally, I get offers, for editing work, but I can't really do it. I don't. Well, for one thing, I don't have the hard drive space anymore. But generally, I don't have time. I know how long that sort of thing can take,
Hmm.
and I of course I know lots of guys who are still working, and sometimes who, you know, in this particular COVID climate, they are struggling to find work, and so I've got usually a short list of guys' names that I can pass on to people, but generally it's not something that I've done much of recently.
Right.
Oh,
Uh,
I helped my brother out.
oh, what's his involvement with film?
No. Alex has just been applying for some my the middle brother. Robbie's in London. Alex is here, and he's going back to school to study Māori. Um,
Oh,
but
right.
Māori, but like he already speaks really good Māori. I think he's doing his masters in science. He's already got his undergrad in physics or something, and he's going back to do his masters in science, but in Māori, so he can teach high school science, but to in Māori immersion. I think that's the plan.
Wow.
But yeah, so I've been helping him with all of that stuff.
Yeah, well, that's very impressive. I know. Is it the case that his daughter, like her first language,
Mm.
is actually Māori, her mother tongue?
Yeah, yeah, her
Um,
mother tongue, because her mother is Māori, and Alex already spoke quite good Māori, and then now it's totally flawless. I mean, well, it
mm,
sounds flawless to me. It sounds perfect.
mm.
It's completely fluent and very impressive. And yeah, he speaks um, Maori with his daughter. 95% of the time.
Yeah, that's honestly, it's just something I haven't encountered before. I remember I did meet them both, and just talking to each other, rapid fire and
Oh
Māori,
yeah,
and
we went tramping, didn't
yeah,
we?
yeah, we did that day tramp. Yeah. We've been on a few, I suppose, but yeah, that was the one I met him on.
Mm.
Well, that actually does kind of lead into me talking to you about something else I was quite interested in, which is, I guess, I suppose your educational background and your academic interests, which obviously you studied German and you also studied linguistics. And I suppose I was wondering what prompted your interest in linguistics and what maintained it, and what did you end up? If I remember correctly, didn't you? So you got a bachelor of honors in linguistics. Is that right? And I think your final sort of thesis or whatever was about the history of German diminutive forms. How close was I?
You remember quite a lot, and yeah, you've almost got it all down. I I started to do my master's in linguistics,
Right.
focusing on the development of development and distribution of diminutive suffixes across Germanic languages, and particularly in New Zealand with what it says about our relation to the objects that we diminutize, like beersies, you know.
Yeah. Uh,
Um,
by looking at
it
how
was,
German did that.
no, but that was just sort of like another reference point, another thing that I could draw on because I knew how German diminutizes things. And I would sort of compare. I mean, my two greatest reference points, of course, were for German and for New Zealand English, and but and I mean I was doing that for 6 months, but I was 25 and I just didn't have the focus, and it was I suppose I coasted through undergrad. Didn't have to work very hard. I did have to work in honors. That was quite tricky, some of it. But then in masters, I actually had to work, and I don't think I was quite ready to apply myself to the necessary point. And it's taken me quite a lot of self-reflection to realize like what that failure means to me now, 10 years later. Um, would I go back and try to do it again? Probably not. There are other. I mean, because I don't feel the need to complete to complete something for the sake of completing it just because I started it. Yeah, that's. I mean, I love linguistics, and I still pay a lot of attention to the podcasts and lectures on YouTube, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
still very, very interested in that. But I just don't think that I was quite the right man for the career. Um, I think sometimes my prescriptivism gets the better of me, and I don't think that that's really a trait that a modern linguist really needs. I mean, perhaps if it were 200 years earlier, my prescriptivism wouldn't have been such a hurdle.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the current climate would not lean in the
No,
direction of prescriptivism, surely.
no, it's not. And I know I'm doing it, and I know it's not helpful, and I know it's stupid and regressive, but it's part of me. I suppose it's baked in from my parents,
Yeah.
and it's a slight point of embarrassment, I guess, but I know it's there, and so I'm happy to be this sort of like pop linguist, interesting character at a party who can talk with some interesting anecdotes. Um, like language is very, very still very important to me, and I read a lot of books on the subject, but I just don't think that. I mean, I listened to your discussion with Matt, and I've obviously known Matt for so long, and I'm enormously proud of what he's done,
Mm.
and how much he's done, and how far he's gone, and um, and I'm really really stoked that he's managed to do that, and that it just showed me that it's definitely for some people, and it's maybe not necessarily for me, and maybe I know that my interests lie there, but possibly not necessarily all of the requisite focus. Um,
Yeah, you can't really be a filthy casual when it comes to being a linguistics
no,
professor, can you?
and I think I might be spread. I think my interests may be a little bit scattered, and I want to do too many things. And if you are going to apply yourself to proper postgraduate, like after honors, I think you really can't really be doing much else.
Mm.
and I've always wanted to do so many other things at once. Some of it not very well, but some of it, to a reasonable standard. And I think had I not been quite so socially involved and quite so musically active, then perhaps I would have stayed in academia longer. I know that obviously for Anton Killen, I don't know if you'll get him on, but yeah,
Now there's an
he's managed
idea.
to remain. Yeah,
There's
well,
an idea. I think he's on my list actually.
he's quite a good fusion between a brilliant musician and a very successful academic. Um,
True.
and I have nothing but good things to say about Anton Killen. And
Let's
he
put
should
him
be
on
coming
this
to the
list if
country.
he's not here
Yeah, put
already.
him on
Oh,
the list.
yeah, okay. Actually, he was on my list. So, Anton, if you're listening, coming for you, boy. You're gonna get the call. Be ready. Wait by the phone. Well, everyone just has their phone with them. That doesn't even make sense anymore. It's not like you have to
No.
go somewhere to where your phone is and wait by it. It's like it's in your pocket. Or anyway, yeah, it's always impressed me with Matt. Actually, I mean, not to make Matt sound too monomaniacal or anything, but he does have the ability to, like, at the moment, he's got 2 or 3 projects on the go. To be fair, because of the situation with COVID and stuff, he isn't actually having to work quite as hard as he normally would be to discharge his sort of, his responsibilities to academia. I mean, he's still having, but when I live with him, easily like hours a day, he'd just be able to focus on a task, sit in his room, and do it, and not do anything else. Like just do the thing, and just grind away like that. Oh, I don't want to make it sound, just the ability to focus and apply himself in a way that I certainly don't have, and I would also get distracted by all the bright shiny things and so on. Um, Probably to a greater degree than you.
See, if I can talk about it,
Hmm.
then it's completely different. But if it's just me and a whole stack of books written, by people I don't know, hundreds of years ago in many cases, then I suppose I lack the interactive kind of connection to it, and I'm just it takes a it. I just don't think I have the attention span to do that. Yeah, I suppose that's it. And it's taken me this long to kind of accept that, and that's all right.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing fine, Duncan. You're killing it. Keep it up. Um, hmm. And what I suppose this is sort of not related to linguistics, but I mean, I know that you speak good German, and that you've sort
Mm.
of learned other languages as well to varying degrees, and sort of where are you at with all that, and what are you currently? You learning Māori at the moment? Is that correct?
No, I'm waiting for that to come out on Duolingo. It's expected. It's supposed to turn up any month now. Uh, no, I started with French. My mother was determined that I speak very good French, and so put me into private lessons when I was 6.
Hmm.
Um, it was all yes. My mother had this sort of like all these rather kind of dramatic renaissance sort of plans for me. I was playing violin at 4, um, learning French when I was 6, and and I was doing elocution lessons when I was 8. And so one of the reasons why I sound not like the typical New Zealand bloke um, is because of those elocution lessons. Um, and so I did French for a very, very long time, and then I decided to move to Germany instead. And my German suddenly very, very quickly got better than my French. And I've dabbled in. I had to do some Danish at university for one of those papers. I've had to do some Dutch. Um, yeah, they're cool. They're interesting. Um, I'm just learning Welsh at the moment on
Oh,
Duolingo.
yeah, that's right. How are you finding that?
And
I mean, it'd be interesting to do a
it's
language that wasn't sort of related at all, right?
no, it's not related at all. I mean, it well,
Not Latin or
French,
Germanic.
French is a no, it's not Romance or Germanic. It's Brythonic. It's a Celtic language. Um, it's the least dead. Well, I mean, it's not dead. All the other ones, well, no, Irish isn't dead either.
Yeah, that.
I don't
Oh,
think.
some of the others are like clinging on by their fingernails, right? Whereas Welsh is like,
Yeah,
it's sitting in the couch.
yeah. Irish and Welsh are probably fine. They have countries and governments behind them promoting them.
Right.
Scots Gaelic less so, and the other ones are basically dead. Manx and Cornish, they're pretty much gone.
Hmm.
And Breton as well. It'll be tough for them because the French just don't give a shit. Um, yeah, so that's a shame. No, Welsh is really interesting. I have Welsh ancestry on my mother's side. I think her grandfather was came out from Cardiff. Um, yeah, so I find it interesting, and I played this really weird gig like 10 years ago with this jazz funk fusion band. It was such a strange night. It was the Wellington has the only apparently the only Welsh bar in the Southern Hemisphere. That's their claim. It's a bit of a
Really?
big one.
I know the Welsh bar, but really, is it the only one?
You really would think that there'd be one in New South Wales, wouldn't
Right.
you?
You would think that.
Um,
Son, I am doubt.
yeah, yeah, I know. It seems like an outrageous claim,
Hmm.
but it is a really good boozer, and I've had some great nights there. And I used to play. I used to be the go-to bass player of the kind of resident pianist of that pub. So I ended up being invited to play at the owner's like really big house for his 60th birthday, and it was just him and every Welsh person in New Zealand, and it was just such a weird night. I was surrounded by just about 100 people speaking Welsh all night, and I didn't understand a word. And I had a really interesting night, and and maybe yeah, I guess 10 years later, I've decided to pick it up, and it's really fun. It's very challenging. A lot of it must be hard to say, really hard to pronounce the double L thing, the thing. It's
Just clear your throat, spit something
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah. It's pretty weird,
Hmm.
but I quite like that about it. And I suppose like ancestrally, I suppose I'm more British than anything else. So I suppose I feel that a bit of a connection to it.
Hmm.
I'm of course also so English and German, and but I guess I've ended up with an anglicized an anglicized Scottish name, Duncan, um, which is yeah from Scots Gaelic, Doncard. But yeah, I
I
don't
didn't
know.
know that
We'll
actually.
see.
Don Card, is it?
Doncard, I think
I'm not
it's
even.
Gaelic.
Anything that involves phlegm, I don't even try.
Yeah.
I leave that to literally everybody else. Um, it was very interesting. Let's see. I did have a look to see if anyone had dumped any questions, but it doesn't actually look.
uh,
There is actually
that's fine.
someone living in France is saying that Breton is very well spoken in Brittany, but the rest of France just not at all.
That's really, honestly, that's really good to hear.
Hmm. Yeah.
There's
Uh,
we've got a Breton cafe in central Wellington.
I did not know that. What's it called?
I think it's called Cafe Breton, and it's off Lambton Quay. It's not Brandon Street, the next one up.
Not Woodward. Oh no, on that side.
Other side.
Waring Taylor. I don't know.
No, 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 further along towards Cuba Street.
Okay, well I can visualize it, but I don't know what the
Yeah,
name is.
yeah,
Cafe
no,
Breton. Go there.
yeah, no, and you can tell it's got that nice old Celtic symbol that that Triskelly thing. It's like three little spirals that join in the center.
See, when you don't leave your house unless you have to, you don't learn about all the interesting things that are in your backyard.
That's it, yeah.
Hmm. Um, actually,
Amelia knows what's up.
yeah, yes, she does. Oh yeah, there we go. Um, and I was also going to ask you, I suppose. I usually tend to ask people. I mean, the kind of setup here for this podcast is that I speak to spooky weirdos who are doing things that just I perhaps arbitrarily find interesting and would like to talk to them about. So I guess I'm interested in what your experience has been of being a goth and hanging out with goths and participating in goth communities. I mean, I suppose it's quite a lot to sort of sum up, um, or to speak in general about. And also, I suppose you've experienced the goth scene quite a lot in Germany as well as in New Zealand. I imagine mostly Wellington, in New Zealand. Have you lived in other
Yeah,
parts of the country? I mean, we run into the Auckland goths all the time, of course. Go up and see them, or occasionally convince them to come down here.
yeah, that's pretty fucking hard.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, I mean, I know the Auckland scene well enough, and I don't know the London scene as well as I've liked, as I would like. Uh, but yeah, I got to know the scene in North Rhine-Westphalia in 2003, 2004, and became quite suddenly and dramatically kind of swept up by it, and I just got kind of obsessed with going out as frequently as I possibly could to as many different clubs as I could. And I had this little Schaukelkarte kind of pass that was absurdly cheap. It was 20 euros for a month, and it would let me take the train almost all across the entire federal state to
wow,
like a fucking like 15 cities or something
holy
for
shit!
like for free. But I mean, it felt for free. It was so cheap, and so I just go to like different golf clubs every single night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, often Sunday, and I think the local one. I was living in Wuppertal, which is it's central enough, and we just go to Bochum and Oberhausen and Düsseldorf and sometimes Cologne, but I'd have to pay extra. Um, and Duisburg sometimes. And yeah, I just get out and about all the time for almost 2 years, and then I moved back to sleepy little Wellington just as I turned 20, and it was so quiet, and I'd have to wait sort of weeks for the next goth gig, and I'd get absurdly dressed up because that's what I was used to doing. And I mean, I know now, like I recently had my head shaved, so I'm growing it all back, and I'm not wearing makeup because it's a fucking Monday. But I'm glad that it's not stopping you.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. I don't know. It's and yeah, Dark Habit was really busy at the time, and I felt all this enthusiasm to really get involved with the Wellington goth scene. I suppose I've never been short of enthusiasm or pep, as the Americans might say.
hmm.
Uh, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I suppose my experiences of being a goth, I guess I've been met with violence on maybe 5 times.
Wow, that many, that
Oh
many. I
yeah,
suppose
that's
you
conservative.
you've probably been in situations, actually, probably quite a lot more frequently than me, where violence would be a possibility. You know.
Yeah, I've only really been beaten up maybe twice. And by by complete strangers for being a goth. I should,
Right.
I should add that caveat. Yes, that was just complete random boy racers in central Wellington who just attacked me for looking the way that I did at the time. There were other times there was one occasion in Germany that got violent with some young, I don't know, possibly refugee boys, and we certainly didn't start it, and that was unfortunate. And yeah, there've just been a few kind of random altercations, mostly with drunken men,
Yeah.
usually
Drink is the link.
older than me, and who they just wanna pick a fight with the guy who looks radically different and must be therefore be somehow attacking their own senses of masculinity and what it means to be male for them. I don't know. I've never quite understood violence. I've always been, I think, quite not. I don't think I'm a pacifist. I don't think that that's really the right way to go about things. But I have been quite non-violent. I think that I can usually resolve things with conversation, and violence really should be the very, very last resort. But it should be a resort, and I don't. I think it's dangerous to completely discount it and to refuse to entertain the notion of violence in the end.
Mm. Yeah, it doesn't really work unless everybody's prepared to do it, and everyone will never be prepared to do it. I suppose I've always found that I've managed to talk myself out of situations where it looked like becoming a real possibility. Or I've managed to, more frequently probably, I've managed to see that it was going to happen, and to have chosen not to be there in order to avoid it. Um,
Hmm.
hmm.
Yeah.
I was wondering, actually, I suppose, like, given that you've had quite a lot of experience of the German goth scene, if you could make any, if you'd be prepared to venture any generalizations about the way, say, Germans tend to approach being a goth and doing goth stuff, versus sort of other scenes and other groups of identifiable populations, say, that you've encountered, or
I
just not
suppose. I
really?
mean, if generalizations really have to be made, then I suppose I would say that the scene in Germany is considerably less tongue in cheek.
Hmm. Yeah.
In the sense, I think it's more uh, sincere. Yeah, I suppose it is more sincere. Um,
Well,
it's
there's not a lot of self
less of a
ridicule.
wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Um, I don't know. Um, it's been so long since I've actually lived there. I expect Freya has some, much more nuanced opinions on the subject.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, I'm lining her up
and
for an
certainly much
interview.
more recent. I haven't. Of course, we've hung out in Germany a couple of times, but we were always kind of inwardly focused rather than outwardly focused at the time.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but I don't know. They because the population is so much bigger, they do tend to go a lot more extreme with their appearance.
Right.
Um, yeah,
You think that's something to do with, I suppose, wanting to, I don't know, stick out more or attract more attention, and the bar for that being a possibility is being raised higher, or not really?
I expect it can be tolerated with a larger scene, a greater kind of breadth of extremeness of appearance. Um, yeah, I don't really know, but it's certainly vastly tolerated, and even and certainly welcomed and appreciated. And I mean, you you see girls at WGT who the way they dress there, you could never imagine them possibly dressing like that in Sydney or Auckland or Wellington.
Mm.
It's just I just can't imagine it. But there, somehow in that context, it seems the most natural thing possible. Um,
Well, if you're going to do it anywhere, like doing it in at
yeah,
WGT would be the
yeah. So
place, right?
obviously, a wave gothic driven, you can dress as extreme as you want, and it's going to be celebrated. And
But I imagine you would have seen some of that even just going out to ordinary club nights and that kind of thing, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely, yeah. Um, I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting lazy. I mean, I know that I had my head shaved, and so I feel rather limited now. But
I mean, I walk
I
around
feel
I walk around
pretty
most of the
nice
time looking like I'm
time
either
like
going to a
starting
gym or
jobs.
on my way home from one. And both of those things are things that are quite likely to be true. Not because I'm working out all day or anything, but because I work in a gym. Uh,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah. Um,
Yeah,
hmm.
I suppose I just needed a big change. I had dyed black hair for the better part of 20 years, and as soon as my hairdresser said that she could see some grey hairs coming through the regrowth, I thought, well, this is my opportunity to go in the other direction, because if I can't have long, beautiful black hair forever, then I want to have long grey hair, long, eventually silver hair, I
Like a
really hope.
silver
But
fox
ultimately, yeah, I mean, maybe white, who knows?
can be a good
Uh,
look. Yeah, well, if you
my,
can't,
my dad has white hair, so fingers crossed.
yeah, if you bleach grey hair, does it go just like bone white? I think that's an experiment you could investigate. I
Probably,
actually, I
probably pretty
think,
bad for it.
what's that?
I'd expect that's pretty bad for it. I mean,
Eh,
it's pretty,
you can
like,
always grow more, right?
Christ, I don't know. This is really outside of my knowledge base.
No,
Uh,
I'm just saying words.
yeah, I think we all are.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's what I want to do. Yeah, just grow my hair out and have it natural and let it fade to grey.
Um, no, I think I'm just gonna. I do actually have some grey hairs now. For a long time, I mean, I probably had some, but I absolutely was not aware of it because I've been dyeing my hair so regularly. Uh,
Sure.
but but even probably within maybe a few weeks ago, I just had some unmistakably bone white hairs. Uh, just coming out of my parting, and so I guess that's the thing. But it's like fuck it, I'm just gonna keep dyeing it black, and until it is tragic, and then yeah, maybe I'll go white, just go completely white.
Yeah,
Eyebrows
it's
too,
a really, really
pubes.
sudden transition with you, just like
Yeah,
black with white regrowth. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that'll do.
Well, I mean, maybe feels like it could be a lot of work. Uh, fighting the waves, but we'll see.
Yeah,
I don't have to make a
eventually
decision today. Hmm.
yeah,
Um. Well, Duncan, I think we've done a good job here.
we have.
Are there things you'd like to discuss or bring up that I haven't given you an opportunity to? Uh, you know,
Um,
final thoughts,
no,
final
not
remarks.
really. I mean, I still have this Kauai 1989 Superboard that my mother gave me in 1995,
Hmm.
and I've only recently sort of got it out of her attic. And during the lockdown, I started actually teaching myself how to play the damn thing again after the better part of 25 years.
Oh
And
wow,
um,
good
and
effort.
it has come back very quickly. And then she just came over with like a whole stack of fucking theory books,
Do you,
and
Duncan? Duncan,
yeah.
do you want to play us a little something?
No, absolutely not. No, no, it'll be
Just a
done.
chord.
But it has it is beginning to make me think in other ways of songwriting, and
Mm.
that will probably go to. Um, I think Lester wants me to maybe play some synth in Ebu, and I've definitely been tinkering away in After the Flash, and yeah, it's but when it's just been me by myself, or when there are others in the house, kind of wandering around, I just play Dungeon Synth. I really love Dungeon Synth just by myself. It's just really fun, silly music that I can play by myself.
Um,
Because as a bass player, I've never really been able to play a lot of music by myself because just listening to a solo bass player, unless you're, I don't know, Jacob Pastorius or someone, is
right.
not particularly interesting. Um, and so yeah, it's been great for the last few months. I just kind of on Friday night after a couple of wines, I just pick some keys and I just kind of make some silly kind of synth clarinet dungeon synth. It's been great.
It does sound like a lot of fun. There've been
Yeah,
quite a
and
few
this is
times I've
exactly
considered.
the right synth for it. It's got exactly the right patches.
Is that are the speakers part of the keyboard there? Could you play us a little dungeon synth, Duncan?
Yeah, it's great.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, one of the I suppose it's actually a reasonably meaningful experience of my life has been watching Freya pick up piano, going from knowing absolutely nothing to being pretty competent within about 3 months, just by like just intense effort and practice, hours and hours a day. But to see that it was actually possible, I mean, there have been quite a few times I've thought I'd quite like to pick up, some sort of keyboard or piano or so on. And I just haven't been able to go do the hard yards and stick with the practice or anything like that. But now at least I feel like it's possible to get to basically a standard where you're good enough to play stuff that your average rock band might play and to play it competently in front of a crowd, sort of stuff, within a few months of
Yeah,
intense practice. I do have that in the back
yeah.
of my head.
I mean, I can. I'm not there yet, but I can sort of see it on the
Mm.
horizon, and I can feel like I access all of the experience that was drilled into me by my late grandmother, who was a gifted pianist, and she made me practice really long and hard through the first half of the '90s as a little kid,
Hmm.
and it doesn't actually go anywhere. It is still in there,
Oh,
and
that's
although
interesting.
since then I moved on to classical guitar and bagpipes, and I ended up playing bass guitar in a shitty skate punk band, and that's how I got into playing in bands, and I'm still there. It's weird that like I find myself going back to the raw appeal of an instrument that I kind of left behind as a 12-year-old, you know.
Mm. Well, I'll give you a couple of months, Duncan, and then I'm expecting concert pianist level performance
Well,
for everybody.
I'll see how I go. Robbie, my brother who's in London, has left me sort of custodian of all of his lovely gear, and some of it is really nice. And one of the things is a big 88 key, fully weighted Yamaha sort of concert electric piano, and it's very very nice. And so I do look forward to kind of graduating up to that, sort of getting to a point where I feel like I'm not tarnishing it.
Mm. Oh well,
Maybe not
look,
me.
I think if your history has anything to demonstrate to us, it's that if anyone's going to be competent or capable of doing that, it'd be you. So
Oh, that's very
I
kind.
look forward to seeing the developments in that regard. Um, Well, I think our work here is just about done, Duncan.
Yeah, it's been a
Yeah,
pleasure.
it has. It
Pretty
has
close to an
been
hour and a half.
always a pleasure, never a chore. Uh,
No, that's what I always find myself thinking whenever you and I get into a conversation at a party or a gig. I always think, "Gosh, you're a good conversationalist. Why don't we do this more often? You're just really fun to talk to."
oh,
I,
oh.
I always find myself laughing, thinking,
Well, you'll make me blush, but no one can tell under all this crap. So,
"No, no, 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 no,
well,
no."
all right. Well, I'll say goodbye to you, Duncan. You might want to hang out. I've got a little poem to read. Uh, that
Can I hang
I
up before you read me the poem?
um yes, yes, but
Okay.
the poem I'm going to read, I thought, well, Duncan, I tend to associate language and linguistics and so on with you as one of the half a dozen things, in fact, that I associate with you. So I
Well,
found a
perhaps one of the weakest strings of my bow.
well, um, well, I'm no one to judge. Uh, but I did choose a poem called Language Lesson 1976 by Heather McHugh that I'm going to ride us out with tonight. So I'll say goodbye to you. Um, thank you very much for coming along and doing this. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Um,
Likewise, Barney.
I should really get on to Anton and Brad as well. I
Yeah,
want to collect you all.
collect the whole set.
I
Oh,
collect.
I just want to add one thing that you said at the beginning
Hmm.
before I got on. I think we actually met at New Year's Eve '04 into '05. It was at this really weird gig at a converted church in a basement on Adelaide Road in Newtown.
Uh oh
And you had a beard, and I thought that was really weird when I met you later.
yes, I did have a beard. I had a
Hmm.
magnificent beard. I lie awake at night sometimes, missing that beard, but not really wanting to grow it back.
Yeah,
Um,
I can't imagine it now.
um, okay. Well, look, you know, I would trust your memory before I trust my own. So that's how it happened.
So
That's how it's going
I will,
down in the annals of
yeah,
my podcast history. All right. Thank you very much, Duncan. See
sure,
you.
it's been a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Catch you later. Stick around for the
Good
poem.
night, everybody.
See ya. And thank you all for hanging out with me today, and with Duncan and I. Uh, just gonna write it out with a poem. Language Lesson 1976 by Heather McHugh. When Americans say a man takes liberties, they mean he's gone too far. In Philadelphia today, I saw a kid on a leash look momward and announce his fondest wish. One bicentennial burger. Hold the relish. Hold is forget, an American. On the courts of Philadelphia, the rich prepare to serve, default. The language is a game as well, in which love can mean nothing. Double talk mean lie. I'm saying double talk with me. I'm saying go so far the customs are untold. Make nothing without words. And let me be the one you never hold. Till next time. Good evening.